Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. You're here with two life coaches, and we are talking about inner work, what we call the beautiful work. And we're here to have another great conversation with you today. We are in the end of our first month of our fifth season. Hi, Laurel.
Hello, Laurel. It just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's going faster and faster.
Faster and faster. I am back here with Laurel today because I asked her if I could come back and talk more about her conversation with Nick because I listened to it twice and I found it to be extremely powerful. If you are listening to our conversation today and you missed her conversation with Nick Tucker 2 weeks ago, please go back and listen to it. There's so much there. So we came back to talk a little bit more about what happened in that episode, right? Yeah.
Yes. And I am thrilled that you are here. I know last season we had this cadence of, me doing 2 solo episodes a month, us having one conversation, and then one of us interviewing. But what I love about this, it's our fifth season, and
Yeah.
it's just going to be what it's going to be.
Right, right. Yeah.
It
We'll be
just
here
is.
together, or she'll be here alone, or I'll be here alone on a meditation, or we'll be here with a guest,
Yeah,
however it comes.
it
Yeah.
really is just unfolding in
Yeah.
a way that feels good.
Yeah, yeah. Being in your flow, we talk a lot about that in inner work and how to create a flow, right? And I like that we're a living example of that. Laurel and I don't have a big plan. We have a skeletal plan, and we have a very intentional plan that it's all going to work and it's going to work with ease and grace, and we show up when we say we're going to show up and we do what we say we're going to do, and we let the rest kind of come together as it will. And it's been really working well. Yeah,
It
it's a
has
good
been.
flow. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So,
today's episode,
yes.
you want to give our title?
Do tell our listeners. Let's see. We are talking today about focus, devotion, and inner work.
Yeah.
And this title really just came out
Yeah.
of, the conversation with Nick and really the way that his inner work came to be or evolved
Yeah.
with his focus to be a good husband and father, to be a good human.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it resonated so powerfully with me because, I always felt like deep within me had a calling to be a mother. And I knew that that was like something I wanted so badly in my life. And it was so important to me then to really become a good mother and create the family that I wanted to. And so going through a divorce with my children's father was a very, very painful and difficult decision to make and to go through, because it really challenged all my thinking around, can I still do this and have this with that factored in, right?
Yes.
And I felt like I was really successful in that, right? We were successful because I think he wanted that too, right? So I think that what came up for me was this idea of your inner work is usually attached to something big in your life that you want, and then
Yes.
you dedicate yourself to it.
And I want to say it may be something that you want in your life. It may not be in your life currently when you start your inner work, right? Or
Right.
when you give that devotion and focus to inner work. It's because you want your life to be a certain way. You want to yourself to be a certain way,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's really easy to know what we don't want. And maybe that's the seed of what is it we don't want? What are we being drawn to? What are we being pulled to? And how
Right.
can we focus on being better at that?
Yeah, I love that you're noticing that and bringing that forth, the idea of being clear often, or, I don't know, emotionally distraught over things we don't want. And so sometimes we get caught in the cycle of continually focusing on this thing that we don't want. And in fact, without having something that we want instead and focusing on that, what happens is our energy goes into this thing we don't want, we don't want, we don't want. And it's almost an affirmation of keeping it in our lives, right?
Yes. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important reminder because for me, the secret of not getting stuck in what you don't want is taking action, right?
Yeah.
It's
To
having
what
a,
you do want.
that's right, right.
Right.
Taking action towards what you do want, being
Yeah.
focused on what you do want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The word devotion, so we use the word focus, devotion, and inner work here because what we want to see is the interplay of these three aspects of, of being an evolving human being, right? And this the word devotion, Laurel and I were talking about before we got on, so we'll share with you, this idea that a lot of people don't like that word because it maybe has a spiritual context or it sounds a little too committed. I think I often find that people have a hard time with the word commitment, never mind devotion.
Yes.
And
Yes.
devotion is like intense commitment,
That's
like
right. It
that's how I
is.
think of it
Right.
anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
And when you think about devotion, that is that's the noun, right? When you
Yeah.
think about being devoted, it's
Mhm.
scary because, or it feels heavy
Yeah.
because it's a big commitment.
And big
So,
responsibility.
yeah, that's right. Right. And
Yeah.
so there is that piece of, you know, in our conversation before we got on to record now, I mentioned about brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
That's something that I do religiously,
Yeah.
more than once a day.
Yeah.
And in thinking about devotion, it is a daily devotion.
Yeah.
And it could be that simple. It doesn't have to be this big, weighty, spiritual or religious exercise.
Right. Right.
That
It
it's
can be, but it
a,
doesn't have to be.
that's
It can
right.
be simple,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
And yet, in its simplicity, right, is where then the inner work comes in, right? If you are going to be devoted to something and you are going to truly, like, say, like Nick did, I'm going to be a good father and husband. Like I said, I'm going to be a good mother. I'm going to create a good family situation here, right? Then all your focus and your organization of your life starts to center around that. And if in a true devotional practice, you do go deep, you do go big, right? You do take on the responsibility. Yeah.
Willingly.
Right. And you reap the rewards of that, right?
Yes.
That's the thing that I think people forget, that in any experience like that, as we try to remind you every week that we're here, right? Is that, inner work is beautiful work because it creates a beautiful life. And that's where the reward comes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really interesting because to think about all the other places that I'll say devotion shows up in our life, right?
Hmm.
We might be devoted to, when the year that I decided to walk 100 miles a month, I was devoted to my walking, right?
Yeah.
That walking was a devotion.
Mm.
Other areas that it is just what we decide. We
Yeah.
make a decision and we take action and it becomes a devotion. And so
Yeah.
when inner work, it doesn't have to be I'm devoted to my morning meditation practice and that
Yeah.
has to look the same every day.
Right.
It can be, as you were saying, so much a bigger goal,
Yeah.
to be a good mother, to be
Yeah.
a good parent, to have a good family structure. Like those are big purpose, maybe is what's
Yeah.
coming up for me.
Yeah.
To have that greater purpose of what you want to be and being able to do it at a greater level, maybe, right?
Yeah. 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 Uh, all right. Everybody ready for this? I'm gonna
I
go
am, Laurel.
gonna go big, I'm gonna go deep, and I'm gonna go strong here, everybody.
Good.
So sit tight, okay? One of the one of the big cultural, I would say, conditions going on right now, right, is that many of us have been caught in a conditioning stream of wanting material things and thinking that that is going to bring us happiness, meaning, peace, whatever, right? And I think without a bigger purpose attached to any material desire, it ends up feeling empty.
Yes.
And we feel bereft when we get it often. Okay, what's next? I still haven't filled up my hole, so I got to get something else, right? And the bigger purpose or the meaning that's attached to anything, the reason, the why that you're doing it is the thing usually that brings you the meaning, the satisfaction, the feeling of fullness, of goodness, of grace, whatever. And so, if you feel like you are stuck in a stream of, oh, I just want the next thing, I just want the next thing, and I can't seem to, get rid of this feeling of I want it, right? Is, well, why do you want it? What is your bigger purpose as a human? I mean, we are spiritual beings, like it or not, however you want to see it. Our consciousness, I don't think just is over when our body's gone. You might think that, and that's okay. You probably, if you think that, then I don't know. Maybe you won't resonate with us, but I feel like we have to acknowledge that there's something more beyond just the physical body.
Yes. And I'm gonna offer this. If someone doesn't have that view that, our spirit, our soul lives on long after our physical body, it might be just looking at a greater purpose in this lifetime, right? What is the work that you're here to do?
Yeah.
And so
And
listening
why?
and why, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so listening to Nick's story, the work that, I mean, this is my perception. The work that he is here to do is to break the cycle of family structure that he came from, and to bring that message of hope to others that it is possible to rise out of
Yeah.
difficulty or challenging times.
Yeah.
And I love that, right? When I think about, often I think about, my role in what I'm here to do on a very personal level. It ties to, no surprise, like yours and Nick's, creating a family structure that is different than the one that I grew up in and the one that my parents grew up in, right? So
Yeah.
thinking about breaking those cycles, knowing that my work is to maybe be a better communicator in the relationships that I have. Maybe show my children, a family structure that they didn't have role models for before, right? So I want everyone, all of our listeners, just to think about, if you have any inkling of what is it that you are here to do, that is really kind of the invitation to devote your life to moving down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking when you were talking or imagining when you were talking, like remembering that, those generations that have gone before us, right, have done their own version of their work to get us to here. We're doing ours. And then the future generations will go on and do other work that we won't know about necessarily because we'll be gone. And so to see yourself as a part of this ongoing evolution of humanity, whether this is your one lifetime or not, whether you believe that or not, is another big picture view that you can hold, right? I want to contribute to the evolution of humanity becoming X, Y, or Z, right? Whatever your X, Y, or Z happens to be. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so beautiful because it's true that even as individuals, our individual contribution to the world, no matter how small our world might be or how big our influence is,
Yeah.
you know, our contribution to humanity really is, I don't know, it just changes the world, one
Yeah.
individual at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this idea of, well, all that we're talking about today is bringing us back to this idea of, if you're having trouble focusing in on your inner work, or you're having trouble focusing on creating a beautiful life, or focusing on what do I do today to make my life better, right? Is thinking about what you're devoted to, taking time to reflect on what do you want to devote your life to? What does matter to you? What can you commit to at a big level so that it starts to organize or focus how you're living your life and then how you're going to create the beautiful life that you want, right?
Yes.
And it's almost like without those guiding lights, that North Star or whatever you want to call it, we can flounder around without figuring out what are we going, what are we doing, right? And that's important to
It is.
have that. Yeah.
And especially at the pace that we live and work today,
Hmm. Hmm.
many of us are just getting through the day, right? Surviving the day.
Yeah.
And I think about this, like when I think about my corporate career, it was fast paced, it was demanding, and I was focused and devoted. But the focus and devotion was really, I mean, there were things I chose, things I needed, things I wanted, things I didn't want that led me to that particular path in my career. But at some point, my devotion was not serving myself, and it was not. I didn't have the time, focus, and energy to devote to what I wanted my life to look like.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing that, this focus sometimes requires us to take a step back and think and just get clear about, am I devoted to something that I am choosing or has chosen me?
Yeah. 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 And and any kind of shift or change, that's made really consciously around, wow, I started out here with this purpose in mind, and it's kind of taken me off course, taking me away from, my bigger mission here, can be course corrected, right?
Absolutely.
We aren't, I think the moment that we feel like we're stuck where we are because we made this decision and now we can't get out of it is when we really get in trouble. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and I think that, your aha moment in your kitchen many years ago was
Yeah.
exactly that. It
Mhm.
really gave you clarity about,
Yeah.
what you wanted and making an intentional decision to devote your, I'm going to use the word becoming,
Yeah.
to your becoming, to your, devote your life to what you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we often come back to this word, we're using it more and more, this idea of becoming, right? If, if, if in fact you can shift your focus from having to becoming, right? And you're serving yourself and your own higher self, or however you want to think of it, to become, to fulfill your potential or the infinite potential that you think is there, or the finite, however you look at it, then your task becomes more inner oriented, right?
Yes.
And also, then you begin to affect everything in your life rather than I just need this car, this job, this salary, and I'll do whatever I can do to get it, right? And I need to create like that's what oftentimes keeps us coming up empty, right? Oh, I got that. Okay, now what, right? Where this idea of becoming is pretty ongoing, pretty
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
And let's just take becoming one step forward or one step
mm,
further in the being,
yeah,
right? If we can sit in and focus on our being,
yeah,
it really does put us in a place where, for this moment in time, I'm complete. I
yeah.
don't need to be chasing the next thing.
And I love that idea. I'm going to just tap right in there, Laurel, too. And that's another way of actually doing the becoming, right? So, for instance, I want to be a loving mother. All right. So, for this moment, this interaction, I'm going to show up in a loving way. And that's how I'm going to become that consistently, right? So,
Yes,
one interaction at a time. Yeah.
absolutely.
And
You
it
know,
again keeps us focused,
yes.
focused, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to be said for the intention that we bring
Yeah.
into a, and I don't want to call it a behavior. I want to call it a way of being, right? A way of being that we know no longer serves us,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I think about this a lot when we're learning how to, manage our emotions, how to feel our emotions, how to speak about what we really feel and believe, right? And just learning by doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Learning by practicing. If I want to have more honest and vulnerable conversation with people I'm in relationship with, the only way to be that person who's capable of having good, honest, vulnerable conversation is to do it, to
Yeah.
practice it.
Practice it over and over again. And, Laurel, I want to say to our listeners that trust me to say, I'm in this with you. Okay. We are all in this together. When you are doing this work, no matter how far along you get, usually there's always another pattern, limiting pattern that shows up that you can see in yourself that needs work, needs to be released so that you can be freed up to have more of all you want and be more of who you want to be. And, this idea of communication, always working on our communication to be a better communicator, to really show up honestly, is no small thing. I've been working on it my whole life, and I continue to engage in the process of improving because that matters to me, right? It's important to me in
Yes.
all the ways. And so, be kind to yourself, right? But also hold yourself accountable. Like we have to hold ourselves accountable to this. I love in Nick's story, a couple of things that we'll bring up, in terms of strategy too, that he brought up right at the beginning. He talks about writing out his story in college and that being an awakening to really look at what he had lived through. And then it brought up all the feelings that he had around it. And he started taking the time to actually feel the feelings,
Yeah.
process the feelings, release the feelings, and then look at, okay, so what do I want now? Right?
Yes.
So if you don't know where to start, that's a great example of how to start. Take some time to look at your own story. What's there that you haven't addressed yet, or you want to do differently, or you haven't even acknowledged yet? Yeah.
And then find the resources and the safe space to be able
Mm,
to feel your feelings and process your feelings, right?
yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
big. That is big work.
I know it's such
And
big work. We undervalue and underestimate what's important here, and that is not to be underestimated.
yeah,
Yeah, how we can be liberated. Oftentimes we feel really stuck because our emotional energy can get trapped inside us, and then it almost becomes a trap to our voice, to our ability to express ourselves well, to the ability to understand and acknowledge what we want and what we need, because we become this it's almost like being a clogged filter. There's
Yes.
nothing can get through, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, the importance of the emotional processing is huge. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, what last thoughts do you have about this conversation about,
Yeah. I feel like, if you don't have a kind of a North Star, a purpose in your life, can you begin to ask yourself what's important to you and what do you really want? And what is it that, if you, I love the deathbed work, right? The deathbed work is if I only had a year left to live, right? What would I want? What would I want to not leave here without doing,
yeah.
or at least trying to do, right? And
Yes.
sometimes that brings the important stuff right to the surface. Yeah.
Yes. And then the other thing, another way is, if you have a close circle, maybe it's one person, maybe it's five people, but can you ask others, what do you see is my greatest contribution, or my greatest opportunity to contribute to the world? Because often people see something in us that we don't see ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet you want to make sure that if you do that, right, you are being completely honest with yourself around whether you're showing up, how you really want to show up. So, for instance, let's say somebody says to you, "Oh, you're always have answers for people." Well, is that really who you are, or is that just who you thought you were supposed to be? Always have the answers, right?
Yes, yes,
And so you always have an answer, but oftentimes it burdens you to be asked for the information, or you don't really want that role. Like it's okay to look at whether it's the real you or whether it's the conditioned you that is
yes,
being reflected back.
yes. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really important distinction. My own experience, I know it was within a few months of before I made the decision to leave my corporate job when, I wasn't asking for the feedback, but I was hearing from different people in different situations things that I was good at. And so I think the day it really clicked was when a coworker of mine said, he told me, I make every person I'm speaking to feel like they're the only one in the room. And it struck me as, oh my gosh, I'm not trying to do that. No one
Yeah.
has told me that's, the role I'm supposed to be playing. That touched, like, I knew that was something I came into this life with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's really important. It wasn't that I was conditioned to do that,
Yeah.
but so that really planted the seed in looking at what are those God given gifts and talents that we came into this lifetime with that we are underutilizing because we've been conditioned, you know,
Yeah.
either to put them aside or we think they're not valued. So, that's why I say, ask a few trusted people, but be able to just hear what they offer and then let your inner wisdom know, oh, is that core of your
Yeah.
essence, or is that, as you were saying, conditioning?
Yeah. And
And
what
is
would it
it
look?
something I want
Yeah.
to be?
Right, right. And what would that look like if I got to spend my time doing that?
Right.
How would that feel? And what might that look like, right?
Yes. There's
Yeah.
so many questions here too, because the other piece is, is it needed in the world?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
will it
Yeah.
bring me joy?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where some focused, intentional, I don't know, maybe just an inventory or, a look of what you've been doing, how you've been showing up in the world, and is it in alignment with what you want?
Yeah. 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 That's good. Well, Laurel, I would love to hear from some of our listeners. How were you touched by the show? Were you touched by the show? What came up for you? What are you thinking about out there? We want to know. We want to hear. Leave us a comment, please. We don't want to do this in a vacuum. And, it's helpful for us to get feedback from you, right? From our
Yes.
listeners. Yeah. And if you have questions about what, is going on and you want to have us focus on something for a month, give us a topic, give us your question. We'll weave it into the podcast. We're here for you.
Yes. And for
Yeah.
those of you who are giving us feedback, thank you. Keep
Yeah.
it coming.
Keep it coming. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Laurel.
Eh,
We'll be
eh,
back for more in September. Thanks so much for listening out there. We're here for you. We're glad you're with us.
Thank you, and we'll see you again.
Bye for now.
Bye.